So this is a mind-blowing report from a mainstream reporting news station out in Canada. They did a great job with this. They show you how they test phones. They show you so many amazing things. Just remember, phones are really bad, and this proves it. But just remember, your Wi-Fi is 10 to 100 times worse and more RF. They show you in this video proof of cancer. A former head of Microsoft of Canada speaks out against this. And it's clear that the money has corrupted the studies, and it's all money, and that's why this is continuing. It's not because it's safe, it's because of the money behind it. They're so deep into it that it bankrupts so many high elite people, and it's part of the New World government agenda. And just remember, this video and even more videos like this are on vtvault.org/danger. All the amazing videos that blow my mind make it to this site. Check it out. There's not many. This video even proves that there's a message in everybody's phone that warns them of the RF dangers. The message used to be more clear. Now, recently, they've changed the messages in everyone's phones, but the messages are still there. Check this video out, share it to loved ones, and definitely go down the rabbit hole at vtvault.org/danger. It'll blow your mind. It'll be worth it. And check out the studies at vtvault.org/quantam studies.
This is a special edition of Marketplace.
Most of us carry our phones next to our body. And why wouldn't we?
Science, tests, and the hidden message in your cell phone.
I can't find it.
Such information about health cannot become a fine print.
We test the top-selling brands.
So the results are in?
We got the results.
You surprised?
I don't think I'll carry it the same way I have been.
No, I'm a little bit worried.
This is your Marketplace.
There's a secret inside our phones.
Really?
Some would even call it a warning.
Where would I be able to find you?
It's a message that cell phone makers are required to share, but most have never seen it and can't even find it when they try.
Control center? General?
I can't find it, I'm gonna be honest.
That's how it looks.
The message in my phone says, to reduce exposure to RF energy, use a hands-free option, such as speakerphone, to carry the phone at least 5 millimeters away from your body to ensure exposure levels remain at or below the as-tested levels.
So, don't leave it in your pocket?
I never hold my cell phone 1.5 centimeters from my body, ever.
What does that mean?
Exactly what that message means is what I'm trying to figure out. Why are we being told to keep our phones away from our body? I did my first story on cell phones almost 20 years ago.
Is your study something that the cell phone industry was watching?
Yes, of course.
There wasn't a lot of science back then,
A thimble full of research is what we have now.
but suspicions were starting to grow that cell phone use had some health risks.
When did you start to think this has something to do with a cellular phone?
I think when I saw the first MRI and saw the location of the tumor.
Also growing was the suspicion that we're not being told the whole story.
Industry can be really, truly malignant.
There are no adverse health effects in fields of this nature.
The industry clearly is hands-off.
Shouldn't we know the answer by now? All these years later, I'm still asking the same questions. Are cell phones safe? And are we being told enough to make that decision for ourselves? There's a city in California that doesn't think we are. Berkeley is a great example of the battle between the people who think that the public needs to know more about cell phones and the cell phone industry that thinks that people have been told enough. City Council actually passed something called an ordinance ordering all of the phone stores in the city to put up a sign. Hi there. I'm good. How are you? So when you walk in, you see the message that's inside your phone actually up on the counter.
So they do have it here.
And then they think that people will have more information.
Hi there.
They might change their behavior, or they might choose not to change their behavior.
The city is in a new battle over what it can say about cell phones and your cancer risk.
Berkeley's got the message out, but those signs have stirred up a lot of controversy.
For now, this law is in effect.
The cell phone industry wants them to come down.
Face off today between two very high-profile attorneys over the issue of cell phone radiation warnings.
On the cell phone industry side, the same lawyer who fought for big tobacco.
There are no link between cell phones and any known health problems.
They're arguing that the signs are alarmist.
The total effect, Your Honor, is watch out.
But Berkeley is standing their ground.
All we've done is to make sure that consumers are aware of this basis.
The fight is expected to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
We will let you know when he issues his ruling.
Did you have any idea that this would lead to this?
I did. You know, cities have been trying to educate consumers about the effect of RF radiation and safe use guidelines for years.
Mayor Jesse Arreguín is on the front lines in this battle over the right to know more.
They say that that message is baseless, that you have no scientific proof that there's any safety concern.
All we are asking that stores do is provide the same information that the federal government mandates, and that's already supposed to be disclosed.
There's like less than 20 mobile stores here. Why is it such a big case for the wireless industry?
I think the concern on the part of the telecommunications industry is if we can do it in Berkeley, then other cities will do it as well.
You're going to stick with it?
We're going to stick with it.
At the heart of the message the cell phone industry doesn't want displayed, information on how to make sure you're not exposed to radiation levels above the government safety limit. Whether it suggests carrying the phone at 5, 10, or 15 millimeters away from the body depends on how it was tested.
I would say these are the best sellers out of all three brands.
So before leaving Berkeley, I pick up a few phones to find out what that testing is about.
Here you are. Thank you very much.
Have you ever seen the testing before?
All these stories about cell phones, I've never actually seen the testing. The lab we're going to is one of many that's hired to test and certify the phones before they're allowed out on the market. So they're going to show us how that testing works. But also, we've asked them to do an extra test for us because we want to see what happens, what results they get when they test the phone, the way people actually use them, right up against the body. So the chief engineer at this lab, his name is Jay Moulton, and he's going to do the test for us today. So we've got 3 phones here for testing.
Okay.
From the top 3 manufacturers. And the big sellers are the Samsung Galaxy, the LG 5,
okay,
and the iPhone 7.
Okay.
So this is it?
This is it.
Moulton was part of an international committee that designed this testing standard.
What are you going to start with?
Well, we'll start with the head measurement.
What is the wand actually looking for?
It's looking for the highest amount of electric field coming into the tissue.
This is supposed to represent what happens inside the brain?
Yes.
Just like for the manufacturers, our phones will be tested at the highest power level possible.
So it'll be transmitting as if you were as far away from a base station as you can get and still make a call.
My phone's trying extra hard.
This is the worst case it could ever get to be for a cell phone. And we put it into the holder, move it up close to the head, and then at this point, I'm going to adjust to set it so that the speaker is right at the edge of the ear.
That plastic ear is 6 millimeters thick and positions the phone at the distance it's assumed we hold it. And if you're thinking that head looks big, it's because it is.
The head was designed based on a 1950s Army study of all the Army men, and they came up with an average-sized head.
This idea was devised before little kids started using phones.
Yes.
This one-size-fits-all model is just one of the reasons critics say it's time for the testing to change.
I'm in Washington, D.C. to see Deborah Davis. She's a toxicologist, a senior epidemiologist. When I first met her about 10 years ago, she told me that the testing method doesn't at all take into effect the size of a child's brain.
You see here, this side showing you the brain of an adult.
So this is where the cell
That is
phone would
correct.
sit? And this is the radiation that's absorbed?
Yes. This is the one we're most concerned about. This is the head of a 5-year-old.
She was a big part of the fight to get lead out of drinking water. She fought against tobacco. And now, for many years now, she's been fighting to tell people that they should be concerned about cell phones. When I first interviewed you many years ago, you were persuaded there was a problem. You're still persuaded?
Oh, more than ever. unfortunately.
Why?
Well, the science has progressed. Without any question, we have more experimental data on animals. Unfortunately, we have more data on people.
How much more science is there now?
I'd say it's doubled since I first really became aware and wrote about this in 2007.
Among the recent research, a $25 million study on rats by the U.S. government, the largest they've ever done. The findings were released just last year.
It was set up to answer the question whether or not there was any effect on health from low levels of radiation like those from cell phones. The scientists running the study thought it would find nothing. They were astonished when they showed this increase in highly malignant, aggressive tumors of the brain and the heart.
Astonished because some rats were exposed to radiation levels below the safety limit that cell phones have to meet. The findings were deemed so important, those heading it wasted no time letting the regulators know. Canada was looped in too. But when we ask Health Canada about it, they say, while some argue this study provides conclusive evidence, there are numerous scientific questions to be addressed. Health Canada isn't the only one with questions. For many, it comes down to this. If cell phones are a problem, where are all the brain tumors in humans?
This is one of the worst tumors we'd ever seen in a guy who said he lived on his phone.
In Edmonton, neuro-oncologist Dr. Jay Esau recently helped launch a brain tumor registry.
So as the tumor's growing, it's putting pressure on the skull.
To track what we're seeing in Canada.
So you're looking for answers.
100%.
What are your suspicions?
I believe that we're going to see more and more studies that show a correlation between cell phone use and the incidence of brain tumors. There's no question that we are seeing more young people coming into clinic with brain tumors. And the question is why?
But your message is not reflected by Health Canada.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
You know, I understand why, because the data that are out there are so controversial. And in Health Canada's position, they have to look at the data and they have to come to a conclusion. And that, truthfully, the data are inconclusive.
Why is there not more data?
Do you know why? I'll tell you, even in our own clinic, we've tried to keep track of this. And when we ask a patient about their cell phone use, we're asking them to remember. And that's just not reliable. And that's why it's important to get the message out now. We need to at least get young people and adults to start thinking about their use and doing things that potentially can help protect them.
Have you ever done that test for anyone else?
No, I haven't, because it's not a requirement, so the manufacturers don't do it very often.
New tech, old safety rules? This is your marketplace. Science, tests, and your phone on your marketplace. Questions around cell phone safety have now spanned decades. As the science mounts on both sides, so do criticisms over how much we're being told.
Such information about health cannot become a fine print.
I do think that information should be made more available.
Why the concern?
It's constantly emitting microwave radiation. And that radiation, if it's right next to your body, gets into you, whether it's your breast or your pants pocket. The reality is, every millimeter closer to the head or body you keep a phone, you can get more radiation.
So why does the government allow phones to be tested at a distance?
Okay, so this is where we do the body measurements, is on the flat Phantom.
And what will happen when we test them the way you actually wear them?
So first you're going to do it with the distance?
Yeah.
Chief Engineer Jay Moulton is helping us find out.
First measurement we'll do is with a 5 millimeter gap, which this is a 5 millimeter distance.
Because that's how they test it? With a 5 millimeter distance?
This is how Apple did the original test.
Apple tests closer than many at 5 millimeters. LG does their testing at 10. Samsung tests this phone at 15. That's a full 1.5 centimeters away from the body, the maximum allowed.
That seems like, who wears their phone 15 millimeters away?
It's a big gap.
A gap that was designed in the day of holsters.
When was the last time you saw somebody with a phone there who wasn't under age 70?
Why don't they test the way that people use it, like next to the body.
I think if phones were tested the way people use them, none of them would pass.
The results from the first test, the way manufacturers do it, are in. All 3 phones come within the safety limit.
Okay, so that's no surprise to you?
That's no surprise.
Time to start our test the way most of us carry them.
We'll roll this thing all the way up until it touches and has a 0 gap.
Have you ever done that test for anyone else before?
No, I haven't, because it's not a requirement, so the manufacturers don't do it very often.
Not required, even though most people we talk to say this.
Yeah, I definitely would not carry it 5 millimeters for my body. I would have it very close to me.
Here, it's in my jean pocket over here, or it's in my back pocket.
But what harm could that do?
We have known now for more than 10 years that men who keep phones in their pocket have lowered sperm count, they have poorer sperm quality.
Young women sometimes wear their phones in their bra.
Correct. This is an MRI that was shared with us by our colleague, Dr. John West, of a 21-year-old. These are tumors in her breast, the hot spot right here, right under where the phone was kept.
But how do you know that could be caused by a cell phone?
We don't know, but what we know is this. It's extraordinarily unusual for a young woman to have 1 breast cancer, to have 2, 3, or 4, and they all develop as separate tumors under the antenna of the phone. That's beyond coincidence.
A link between breast cancer and phones hasn't been proven. But for Davis, case reports like this are worrisome.
We think this is enough of a concern that we're telling people, please be aware of this.
This is why she argues phones should be tested the way we wear them. So what happens when they are?
So the tests are all done.
Tests are all finished.
And?
The number exceeded the limit. It went up significantly with each one of the phones.
That's right. The phones exceeded the safety limit when they were moved right against the body. The radiation absorbed increased 3 to 4 times.
Does that concern you?
No, primarily because this is a worst case test to where everything is at max power, maximum worst condition.
We shared our results with all 3 manufacturers. LG told us they take the responsibility of producing safe products seriously and test according to the guidelines. Samsung says their phones meet or exceed all regulatory standards. As for Apple, they have no comment and refer us back to that message in our phones. Health Canada, on track or behind the times?
They don't want to investigate this. I think they're looking for any excuse they can find to continue with the status quo.
The former head of Microsoft Canada speaks out. This is your marketplace. This is your marketplace. 7 out of 10 people say they carry their phones in their pocket or against their bodies. But when we tested 3 popular brands, the way you wear them, all went over Canada's limits on radiation exposure.
It's kind of scary.
I don't think I'll carry it the same way I have been.
No, I'm a little bit worried.
He may be worried, but Health Canada says it's not, because their safety limits include a wide safety margin to ensure radiation exposure stays far below the threshold of harm.
They're saying that the testing is so safe that there's no way that we could be at harm.
The system is out of date. It's testing something that's not relevant to how we use phones or to the ways that we know phones can affect our health.
Just keep it 15 millimeters away from your body.
Canadian groups have been urging Health Canada to reassess those safety limits too, since science now shows possible harm below the level that phones are tested for.
We're stuck in this quagmire of believing the science that's decades old.
Frank Clegg, the former president of Microsoft Canada. Now, he heads a group advocating for safer use of technology.
There are dozens and dozens of studies that we've presented to Health Canada that show harm at levels below Canada's guidelines.
He thought they were making headway when a couple of years ago, the government agreed to review the issue. Over 200 studies were submitted by Clegg's group, research on humans and animals, suggesting potential harm, everything from behavior changes to DNA damage and sperm abnormalities, all at radiation levels below what phones are tested for. Clegg was told many don't meet Health Canada's bar. He wants to know why.
I think they're looking for any excuse they can find to continue with the status quo.
We asked repeatedly to speak with Health Minister Jane Philpott, but she declined our request for an interview. So we took our questions to cancer epidemiologist Paul Demers.
The evidence that comes out, I believe, is still mixed.
Demers was asked to review the science on cell phones for Health Canada.
So what is your bottom line then? Are the way that we use cell phones now, are we safe?
Well, I believe we are. The fact is we don't have, at least when I looked at the evidence last, we don't have the evidence to say that there are adverse health effects. There are other scientists that I respect who are more convinced.
What do you do with your phone?
I keep it in my pants pocket, so it's handy. It hasn't concerned me to that level.
As for Health Canada's bottom line, they say the totality of the science does not support a link to harm. They add, even if a small child were exposed to cell phones 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, there would be no adverse health effects.
So how do you explain that?
Health Canada's track record is atrocious. How long did it take to figure out tobacco? So the fact that Health Canada is behind isn't news. The fact that they're not doing anything about it, to me, is unforgivable.
Clegg wants change, but for now says information should be out in the open so people can decide for themselves.
I think there's an opportunity for Canada to be among the leaders in the world, like Berkeley, California, to get the manufacturers' warnings out to say, look, be careful how you use the technology. There's a safe way to use it, and there's a potentially harmful way.
When I first started covering this, the manufacturers were saying there's no science showing any concern. Then it became there's no conclusive evidence. Now it seems the totality of science doesn't. The lingo's changing.
Yeah, the lingo's changing, but they can't make it all go away. We should not insist on proof that we have made people sick before taking steps to protect others.
While Health Canada says you shouldn't be concerned, they do provide tips in case you are.
So do you feel like you're any closer to the answer?
Well, it's been 20 years of asking two questions. One, are cell phones safe? I still don't know the answer to that. And two, are people being given enough information to decide for themselves? And on that, I think we've proven that most people have no idea that message is in their phone, a message the government requires. So I think it's kind of obvious that they could be more upfront with that information. So I'm going to keep pushing for more information, and I'll report back in 20 years.
EMF and RF, what are they? It can be confusing. Let me break it down real quick. The term electromagnetic field, EMF, actually comprises quite different frequency ranges that differ considerably both with regard to physical and biological aspects. And there's different kinds of EMF. There is SMF, which is static magnetic frequency. There is SEF, which is static electric fields. There is extremely low frequency, ELF. There's intermediate frequency, IF. There is electric frequency, and that's EF. And then there's MF, which is magnetic frequency. RF is radio frequency. So interestingly enough, in the ELF range, extremely low frequency range, if strong enough, EF, electrical frequency, and magnetic frequency, MF, are able to stimulate nerve and muscle cells, while in the RF range, energy absorption is heating and is responsible for potential bioeffects, which is what I want to go over real quick here. So basically, to sum it up, within the EMF zone, there are all these different types of frequencies. The RF frequency is the one that is causing the heating damage, which actually burns the glucose out of your brain and causes so many other bad things because it's literally heating you. So basically, elevated EMF fields are often caused from wiring problems or bad grounding. Radio frequency or high-frequency electromagnetic radiation is due to wireless equipment and devices for data transmission. So just to get into details, RF radiation is a form of electromagnetic energy with frequencies that range from a few kilohertz up into the gigahertz range. There are many sources of RF energy in the environment. The well-known RF heating effect has led to the development of microwave ovens in the home and use of microwaves for other heating applications. Now, real quick, if you look below at the graph, you'll see non-ionizing radiation with ionizing radiation, being nuclear bombs, X-rays, and ultraviolet light. Now, let me just tell you how this works. So 1 hertz is 1 pulse per 1 second. And then if you move up to 1,000 hertz, 1,000 hertz is 1,000 pulses per second. Now, as you all know, we're made out of small vibrations of frequency waves. We all know this. So the reason why nuclear bombs radiation is so destructive is because the frequency, the amount that it's pulsating back and forth is so destructive that you see basically destruction right away. Now, they claim that non-ionizing radiation, which is 5G, soon to be 6G, 4G, 3G, 2G, your cell phone, your Wi-Fi, your microwave, they claim that non-ionizing radiation doesn't hurt you at all. Now, anything that's not nature, okay, which is these pulses of energy are not nature at all. It's destroying our equilibrium. It's destroying our balance. Number one, there's this whole PDF right here is probably over 20 studies of proof of these scientists proving that non-ionizing radiation is absolutely dangerous. I'm going to get into that in a second. But I'm just saying, look at this graph. You're going to tell me that the damage just stops after ultraviolet light. That there's no way. And the second thing I want you to look at is the 5G spectrum right there. It's 3.4 to 3.8 gigahertz. Now, if you look to your right, you'll see possible future 5G airwaves, 26, 40, up to 66 gigahertz. So this is from a military PDF, and that's how they mislead you. They say, oh, hey, 5G's here, but potential future 5G waves are here. And that absolutely is weaponizing radiation. You will feel that directly on your skin. Now, the way it works is the lower frequencies on this scale affect you internally. And the higher you go up, the more it affects you externally. Monkeypox. Now, this paper you're looking at that I put together, it looks intimidating. It's about 33 pages, but I promise you it's mostly graphs. And it's a 15 to 20 minute read, and it will change your life, absolutely change your life. This is 20 peer-reviewed studies. I'm summing them up, sometimes quoting them. It's a real quick read, gets to the point. Let me just give you the highlights of these studies and the damages. So first of all, free radicals. What the hell are those? We've always heard of this. I've never known what it is until I got into this research. Now I understand. A free radical is a clump of cells or a clump of atoms that are inside your body, okay? That's a free radical. Now, what is cancer? Cancer is a clump of cells, okay? So free radicals are very, very closely related to cancer, if not cancer. So, moving on to ROS free radical, that's reactive oxygen species free radical. That's a free radical that's created by this RF radiation. This specific set of free radicals actually eats the oxygen out of your blood. You literally can suffocate and drop dead if you have too many of these accumulating in your body. And another curious study is 5G and induction of coronavirus in skin cells. Absolutely amazing study, and that goes right to this and tells you 5G absolutely is RF radiation. All of this is RF radiation. Their first radio transmission, that's when all this began. Breaking it down. How can you hear voices or have different mental conditions from this? When we think, we have neurons that are traveling through neurotransmitters. That's how the messages are sent through our brain, okay? And those are on calcium channels. When the RF hits us, the calcium channels have to react to block back that RF. And each time the RF hits it, the calcium channel blocks it. So what this is it's making the calcium channels overactive, which are giving too many neurons, sending too many messages. This can cause multiple different things. Brain fog, it can cause you to hear voices, schizophrenia, dementia, and more. So much more. Read the studies and it'll elaborate. And back to elaborate more on the ROS free radicals. In that specific experiment, in the study that they did, they realized that a pre-treatment of melatonin completely negated the effect effects, which means every time you go to sleep and your pineal gland secretes that melatonin, that's a powerful antioxidant, and that literally reverses what free radicals do, which includes ROS free radicals. So that's why we need these antioxidants. And what are good antioxidants? Okay, coconut oil is a great antioxidant. You can Google antioxidants. There's so many antioxidants out there. CBD is such a good antioxidant that the government actually has a patent for antioxidants derived from CBD. You can look that up. I provide an amazing CBD that you cannot beat, that is absolutely changing lives, that I've used every single day, that my dogs use. It's amazing stuff. You want to check that out, link below. You really need to read this PDF for yourself, but I want to touch base on a few more things. Microwave syndrome is a term that the scientists have coined for hypersensitivity that you develop when you have too much of this going on. It literally causes you out of nowhere to have headaches, nausea. You'll just be hit with something. And you know, they even say if you go up to the ionizing radiation all the way up, you get flu-like symptoms, which means you absolutely get flu-like symptoms further down the line. That's what all these studies are proving and confirming.
Wide range of symptoms. The symptoms of acute radiation sickness would be just exactly like a terrible flu. Person would have a headache. They would feel very tired. They would have a little bit of a fever. They might have some vomiting at higher doses. All of this would be more severe and would come on more rapidly.
The biggest thing about all this radiation is it causes inflammation. And if you know anything about the medical world, inflammation is the #1 cause of disease. So interesting, this stuff that's been around since 1917, the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, this radiation that's been around since then that causes inflammation, it's been causing all of the disease that's around. It's exacerbating everything, all the chemicals in the food, the chemtrails in the sky, everything, all of the preservatives, all of the bad stuff, the tap water, all the chemicals in it, it's exacerbating it. And that's absolutely our issue that we have today. Okay, it's bad for you. You get it. I get it. We get it. How do we help ourselves? How do we stop this? Multiple things. The biggest and most important thing is shielding. There are studies that prove and that show that different metallic fabrics and different metals can absolutely provide an amazing shielding, okay? And you've learned in the video earlier that that doctor was wearing a silver-lined hat. We absolutely have those hats as well. They're on back order, but those hats absolutely work. You could just buy the material and make your own hat. The other thing you can do is buy the material, put it over your Wi-Fi router. If you're close to your Wi-Fi router, it won't cut down on the signal at all, but if you're farther away, it will cut down on the signal. But it'll basically completely stop the RF damaging waves from hurting you. The other thing you can do is get a big piece of that fabric, whatever fabric you choose, whether it's through us or anybody else. Ours guarantees works and you won't be wasting any of your time or money. So I always suggest you go through us. But if you buy a big blanket sized piece of fabric and you incorporate it into a blanket or even just cover up with it, it'll allow your body to produce that melatonin at night without disruption from the EMF constantly. Our phones are always hitting you. Never sleep near your phones. Never sleep near your Wi-Fi. Shut it off at night if you can. Let your body recoup. Let your body recover. I sleep underneath a $2,500 silver canopy that my buddy gave me when I was having microwave sickness. And it was literally a godsend to have him come give me that. I've never given a friend a hug like I hugged him. It literally saved my life and got me into what I'm doing right now. So please, the most important thing you can do is read this PDF and make somebody else read it, because once you read it, then you know. You can go to the studies and check it for yourself. The other thing, go to vtvault.org/danger. Those are all my milestone videos that woke me up to this before all of this. I've known about it for a while. I thought it was kooky until I experienced it myself. Then it dove me into speaking out about it and getting products out to save the world. That's where I'm at with it. You go to vtvault.org/quantame, you got your shielding. vtvault.org/CBD, you have your antioxidant. The most powerful antioxidant will remove anxiety, help you sleep, help with inflammation. Marijuana plant, it's like not even from this planet. It's like an alien plant. I find it so interesting, so intriguing, and I just can't believe that there's so many medicinal effects for that. And not only is there CBD in this spectrum, there's everything besides THC. So you got CBG, THV, you look them up, they're everywhere. And inside of our CBD, we actually add the root, which has a whole nother set of amazing medicinal compounds, probably super antioxidants. We haven't even looked it up. We don't have time doing so many things like this. So if you want to support this information being out, if you want to